You are so incredibly welcome. I promise you, your time with us today will be well spent. You are very welcome here to the first ever episode of The Virtual Delegate. Over the last 12 months, the whole world has changed, but as an industry of event professionals, we have changed too. So whether you are a venue, a DMC, whether you are a producer or a planner, The Virtual Delegate is designed from the ground up to help you navigate your next step into the exciting new world of events that is lying ahead of us. Now, in my personal opinion, for me, events will always be better in person, but their impact, their reach, their ROI, and their legacy can be skyrocketed with a meaningful and thoughtful virtual and hybrid strategy. That is why we've decided to partner with our dear friends here at beautiful ICC Belfast, a hybrid by design venue that pivoted faster than you can say the phrase RFP. One thing is for sure, though, hybrid and virtual events are here to stay. So over the course of the next 6 episodes, we'll be meeting world-class thought leaders. We'll be hearing innovative case studies from real-life events and showcasing cutting-edge technologies that will move the needle on the impact of your next virtual or hybrid event. We will truly help you turn them from good to great. And it makes sense that you invest now because virtual events are set to grow tenfold from about $78 billion worldwide today to over $774 billion in the future. I said that we wanted this to be interactive, so let's get a few comments. Who have we got? Welting is coming in from Berlin. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. Great to see Stephen coming in as well. Kerry O'Sullivan is coming in from beautiful Galway. Kerry, please send us a request for me to come down the road. For goodness sake, I would be absolutely delighted. Who else? We've got Ronnie Sher coming in from beautiful Bethesda. I used to live not far away. Keep all of your comments and your feedbacks coming throughout the episode. We would love to hear from all of you. Now, we've got a really busy episode planned for you today, and you are going to hear from true thought leaders, and you have my word, you will leave this episode with something that you can apply and employ to make your next virtual or hybrid event extraordinary. So who have we got coming up? We're going to be hearing from Chris Highland from Orange Door, one of the most incredible organizations in the United Kingdom who has been delivering breathtaking hybrid and virtual events, not just in the last 12 months, but before it as well. Also, we'll hear from Jennifer Kingan-Cush. She will be coming all the way from her vineyard in New Zealand because if you could live on a vineyard, why on earth wouldn't you? She is the world's leading authority on virtual and hybrid events. She'll be coming to us from Otago. And then we'll be joined by Mike Piddock. Mike is the CEO of Glisser, a platform driven by user experience, but also analytics as well. So without further ado, I think that we should crack on with our first guest. Remember, this is episode 1, so thank you so much to all of you for taking the time to join us. It means the world that you would support us. Chris Highland is the head of client services at Orange Door. Orange Door are a customer experience agency based in London. Chris has worked in the industry for 8 years and has managed and overseen national roadshows, award-winning exhibitions, all the way since he joined the business. And since 2020, Orange Door have delivered an eye-watering 60 virtual experiences, including an award-winning 2-day digital incentive for a global technology client. Chris, we are delighted to have you join us. Where are you based today?
I'm in my sauna, as you can see, in sunny Bromley. It's a little bit warm, but we're getting there.
I can tell you've had a good year if you built a sauna. So, Chris, how have you and your team found the last 12 months?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think, if we go back to the beginning of the pandemic, we lost everything. We saw our pipeline completely disappear, but within a few weeks, we had started to get that back. And we really found that challenge exciting in terms of being able to look at how we could keep our clients communicating with their customers in so many different ways. We had the right team in place to be able to do that with our kind of production and technical teams. And we've actually been able to provide some incredible experiences, going from VIP experiences all the way up to multi-day conferences that have really enabled them to keep communicating.
Do you know, I think the key word there is experience, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, for the last year, the only word that's been on the tip of everyone's tongue is platform, platform, platform. It seems like it's the beginning, middle, and end of every virtual event conversation. How important have you found platform selection?
Platform selection really does come down to a few things. You've got to think about your business and marketing objectives. You've got to think about the customer as well. You know, what are they trying to get from that experience? But then also you've got to think about what is the content that you're trying to get across. Is this going to be a monologue? Are you trying to deliver content, or are you trying to get this to be more of a dialogue? Are you trying to get people to engage with each other? And then, of course, there's everything that goes around that. So you've got your networking, you've got your exhibition space, you've got your breakouts, and there's so many different platforms out there that can build that experience. You've got to really look at all of the details that actually a lot of clients haven't been thinking about. You know, this whole thing is very new to clients. Virtual experiences have always been kind of to the side of your live events. But what we're seeing now is that we need to get a lot more detail from people up front. So a really detailed briefing document really helps with that platform selection.
Now, one thing strikes me, Chris, you keep talking about experiences as opposed to virtual conferences or hybrid events. Have you found a way to take your virtual events and make that experience really cut through, really feel like it's something that the people at home are participating in?
It's all about moving the experience from just that 1 or 2 day to actually being upfront during the event and then post-event as well. One of the biggest pieces that we found is in co-creation. So engaging with some of those key attendees in building out the content, in building out the experience, and talking to them about their challenges and what they really want to get from the experience that they're going to be taking part in. And then when they come onto that, getting them actually really involved. It's got to be about two-way dialogue, two-way conversation. And then how do we actually move that dial once they come out of the event itself? How do we continue those conversations?
I think that we've all attended approximately 12.5 million virtual events over the course of the last year. And the truth is, Chris, oftentimes they all start to feel the same. But I think that if you get platform selection right, number one, but then alongside that, make sure that you've got compelling content, that you've got engaging speakers, that you've got interactive material. And you specifically mentioned that you can truly make the experience luxurious. What have you done to make that feel special for the people at home?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to bring up one of the events that we won an award for because we are so incredibly proud of it, and partly because of yourself, David, being involved in that experience. Stop it. I know. We actually came, our client came to us with a request for comm support. They wanted to put a VR experience on as part of an incentive for their partners. And we actually said, you know, we could do something better than that. If this is an incentive and we want people to really involve themselves and really get engaged, how are we going to give them an experience that says, you won't believe what I did today? And that experience meant getting people involved up front, getting them choosing the activities that they wanted to take part in as part of a 2-day, 5-hour-a-day experience.
Do you know what struck me about that particular event? Every single element had something physical or tangible that the participants could take part in. How on earth did you come up with the ideas? And I realize you don't want to give away your trade secrets, but can you give us a sense of what some of those experiences were?
No, absolutely. I mean, the experiences, as I said, we wanted the attendees to get involved. So we actually gave them 4 options for each of the different senses to get involved. So we brought sight, sound, taste, touch, etc. into that. And what we actually then did, once they'd chosen those experiences, we thought, how are we going to get people to taste, touch, smell all of those? We got people to make models with Aardman, the guys from Wallace and Gromit. We got people to do wine tasting with Tom Sergey. We got people to actually get involved in interactive singing competitions. But all of that was down to some incredible logistic planning just after Brexit had come through in getting 120 boxes out to people, all perfectly wrapped, delivered to their door the day before, including fresh ingredients. And it's those little touches that really make the difference to that experience.
I have been involved a couple of times in trying to get a small number of boxes delivered to a client for a virtual event. And Chris, I can assure you, I will never do it again. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what the budget is. Trying to get boxes to clients before an event is the toughest thing I've ever done, honestly. But look, one thing that really struck me in particular was the clever way that you used a platform to make it still feel interactive. And I think oftentimes platforms these days are just seen as a version of YouTube or something you can white label, stick your logo on. But you really allowed every single participant to come inside the platform, to turn their cameras on. And I think it absolutely changed the experience. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you made sure that the audience's voice was involved and what impact that made for your client?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the key ways is obviously the fact that we got people to choose their experiences in the build up to the event. You know, they were the ones that were actually saying, I want to do this. So it meant that they wanted to be involved in those. I think the other thing is that when you're building out this experience, you're building out the agenda, you need to make sure that there's plenty of different types of experience, different types of activity. So people are kind of moving between different ways of engaging. Look, you know, if you look at an agenda and it's got 4 or 5 hours of content, you don't want to just be sat in front of your computer for the whole time. So you want to think, how are we going to bring people in there? We want to get them to make things on their desk and then bring it up to the screen. We want them to engage with someone that's interactively engaging back with them. It's all about different types of senses, getting them involved throughout.
So I'm really curious because obviously there are a bajillion platforms out there at the moment. Everyone has their own USP, different features and functions. I'm sure that you've looked at them all. What ones did you consider and what one did you settle on and why?
It's a really interesting question because I think all agencies probably have their, favorite platforms. And as you start to do more events, you tend to actually get a little bit more involved in that platform because you get to know the intricacies. Something like Hopin, which is the one that we chose for this event, is great because of the scalability for it. So what that allows us to do is be able to run some fantastic VIP experiences for maybe 8 or 10 people, but then scale that up and allow people to actually run multi-thousand, multi-day conferences as well. I think the other thing that you've got to look for is the different types of audience that you're trying to get, trying to communicate with. A VIP C-level audience probably isn't going to have the same experience or want the same experience as students, for example. One of the platforms that we've been looking at and that I would recommend everyone going to have a look at is Journey by Waltspin Air. It is incredibly high quality. It's fully immersive. It's completely customizable. It's not for everyone and it's not cheap, but it's something that really just kind of sets the standard for virtual events there.
Which leads to my next question. Do you believe that we should commit to one particular platform, get to know it inside out, upside down? Because I know there's a debate in the industry around this. And also, how do you actually select one? Because there are so many options out there. We need to consider features, functions, benefits, price, and dare I say it, Glastonbury syndrome. The last thing we want is something to go down when we're live at a client event. How on earth do we navigate this?
The question, I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier. There's a number of different factors that, that we ask in the briefing initially, and that obviously takes in the business and marketing objectives that we're trying to achieve. It's also very much down to the content that we're trying to get across. Is that content just one way? Is it more of a dialogue? And what are the pieces around that we're looking for? And then, of course, as I just mentioned there, it's around the audience. We don't want to be putting on the same kind of content or, building the same platform for all audiences. And, we always say at Orange Door, we're platform agnostic. We do have our favorites, but we always look at every brief in a silo and we think, what is going to be the best option for this?
Do you know, we've got some great feedback on everything that you've mentioned so far. Patrick Delaney, who is just down the road from us, is saying, excellent points. Delegate self-selection of choices and a variety of choices are key. Patrick, I agree. And Chris, I think you and the team have hit on something really special there. At the moment, everyone's complaining that virtual doesn't get the engagement, it doesn't get the commitment. But actually, if your delegate co-authors the material, if they're feeding into the design of the platform, then they can't help but attend.
Absolutely. I think it's really important, not just in the build up to the event, but also what you take from that event as well. You know, a lot of the time we look at our platform analytics, or we look at our feedback, and we look at them actually as a whole. But what we need to be doing more is looking at some of that specific feedback, looking at how we can really take that, improve the events as we move forward. I think the other thing is, you know, when we're building out this engagement for events, we need to make sure that we've got a really kind of clear agenda, and that agenda is led by someone professional. You know, we can put on a fantastic agenda, we can bring all of those comments and that feedback into it, but if we don't have someone driving that forward, it's actually quite often going to fall flat. And we've really found that the most successful events that we've run have actually had someone fronting them, like a professional MC like yourself.
Well, I mean, definitely available, Chris. I'll send you the 10%. What do you think? I know that you've also found great success in bringing headliners in, household names to be that anchor point, a little bit like a John Lewis in a giant big shopping center, that anchor tenant that brings people in. It's a big investment, but it does lead to big attendance.
Absolutely. I think, though, that you need to make sure that you're not just building a name for the name's sake. You're looking at what the content is going to be, how their message is going to align with the overall business messaging. We had David Coulthard in recently. He, you know, you're paying good money for these guys, so you want to make sure that there's some alignment of message there. We brought him in to talk about the value of and importance of data in Formula One for a client who's all about data. We brought the Billy Bean in from Moneyball to talk about the same. You know, how did they use data, and how can those messages be applied to a business context?
I do think that application is absolutely key. Chris, stay where you are. We will come back to you in a few moments, but for the time being, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience and your knowledge. But we will, don't rest. We need you back in a few minutes. Stay exactly where you are. And if you want to find out more about the great work that Orange Door are doing, then visit weareorangedoor.com. Some amazing case studies, some amazing applications that I promise you really will inspire you. So next up, we're traveling all the way to New Zealand. And given that our next guest is in a very different time zone, we have pre-recorded this. So momentarily, we will definitely have a debate about live versus pre-recorded, but we are so lucky to be joined by Jennifer Kingan-Cush. Jennifer is a pioneer in virtual and helps global organizations design impactful digital events that truly do drive strategic and financial results. And she's done this all the way since 2010. Her expertise includes strategy, experience design, content development, technology, and measurement of that impact. Now, before setting up her own consultancy, Jennifer led PCMA's Digital Experience Institute as their executive director and as PCMA vice president. There are so many areas that we could have asked Jennifer to share her experience on, but I began by asking her how an event professional can navigate the overwhelming choice of platforms that are available out there today.
David, you're so right. It's overwhelming for me. It's overwhelming for all of us. You know, the number one thing starts with strategy and your goals and really looking at what you need. Do you need a trade show? Then you'll focus in on platforms that have trade shows. If you're focused on engagement, which hopefully everyone has, then you can dwindle down that way. Also, cost is a big thing. The scope for different projects are going to have different costs. So that's really important to look at your resources, which just doesn't limit to the financial or the money, but it's also your team. So lots of different platforms have different levels of service and needs, and that is going to help kind of navigate you to the right solution.
Do you think a planner at this point should be going all in with a platform so they know it inside out, upside down, they know its strengths and weaknesses, and maybe commit to that one as a strategic long-term choice? Or do you think, is that a mistake at the moment because there's so much innovation, so many new features and functions? Maybe maybe if you're tied in, that might be limiting.
You definitely want to look at something you're going to use at least for a couple years, because there's many reasons for that. One is integrations. The platform that you use, you now have to integrate with your customer relationship management system, your mobile app. How does that interplay? Or maybe the technology is your mobile app. Some platforms are more community-based and will give you that long-term, that year-round experience that you want. Then, not to mention just the integrations, you also have the whole onboarding. There's tremendous time and investment for people to get their head around the technology, not to mention the sales team who have to sell it to the exhibitors and sponsors in your audience.
I remember the moment that virtual and hybrid really started to kick in about 12 months ago. And so many of my clients were saying, oh, this is amazing. We're going to save so much money. No flights, no gala dinners, no drinks receptions. But the truth is, platform is a big investment. How do we manage client and association expectations when it comes to the fact that to do a platform well, you have to invest?
Absolutely. Another great question. It comes back with working with all the different organizations. It comes back to the goals and the objectives, and a short-term and long-term plan, and really communicating that and getting the leadership involved early to understand that it is an investment if you want to do it right and you want to see the results. With having those goals, it also gives you that internal roadmap of how you're going to scale up or down your events. A lot of times it's starting smaller and building up to what you're doing. So with all of our groups, we look at the opportunities and we look at the risk. So you're really looking at how do you maximize the revenue to offset your cost. You're looking at how do you provide value to all of your stakeholders. It's not just about the attendees. It's about everyone. It's about your leadership. It's about your sponsors and exhibitors. So how do you put together a plan to increase that revenue that's not just based on registration fees? A big part of it too is the metrics. I mean, we've seen an organization that I worked for that I led our events. We did a ROI report and we demonstrated in 5 years, we brought over $1 million back to the organization because of future products that were sold and future face-to-face. So we have proven that it is powerful and you can have a really strong engagement, but you really have to set those expectations and include the leadership up front.
I've worked on a number of events where a planner may add a separate piece of software just because it has a different functionality that adds texture and variety to the virtual or hybrid experience. Gatherly is a great suggestion for networking. And I know some people are using Zoom, but there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of other options out there. Is it bad practice to bolt on other pieces of software? Does that in any way distract the participant, the user, from the focus that they might have in a single platform? Or actually, is that just finding horses for courses and making it fit for the delegate's experience?
At the end of the day, you're trying to provide the best overall experience. And if networking or that collaboration that the Zoom will bring in is really important, it's important to look at ways that you can provide that. Now, there is no perfect one solution for all events out there. All of our groups work with different technology, and we have used Zoom and Gatherly, which I'm a big fan of, to be able to compensate or to add, I guess, to enhance their experience. Now, when you do that, though, you want to be really careful. So it goes back to what you were just saying about your design experience for the attendee journey. So, if you're going to do that, I would limit it to one or two, because you want to make sure that they don't have to keep logging in throughout. The audience members we have seen do have, their understanding of forgiving. We've used Zoom really effectively. A big global medical meeting, they had their symposias really high produced, but needed that collaborative networking for their special interest groups. And so that was a really great solution. So definitely don't exclude it, but do it very carefully and make sure that you are very thoughtful in the process and that you test.
I know that we are all terrified about technology failing, about a platform letting us down, and only recently we know that, let's call it Glastonbury syndrome, happened in the United Kingdom, and the story traveled all across the world. And I know for a lot of planners, they feel, well, look, if we pre-record everything, doesn't that give us the sense that it's in the bag? It should be so much easier. Where do you sit on the argument of live versus pre-record?
I think it's tricky. I always hear people say, do it or don't do it. I think it's a gray area. Pre-recording does make it easier from an event planner standpoint and the fact of the day of. However, you have all that pre-testing, you have all that pre-recording. It's actually more expensive. It's more costly because you have the production, pre-production, and then you have the live streaming portion. So you're basically doing double the work. However, I have seen, we've worked with global groups. They've had over 500 speakers all around the world with different levels of internet service, working at different hospitals and universities. So we had a lot more systems involved. So they brilliantly pre-recorded. We took their big symposium, broke it down into like kind of TED Talks, but then provided live engagement Q&A questions. So we were able to deliver, in this example, a very solid experience, knowing that we had all of these global thought leaders on this event, but it was very low risk. Also is about looking at what your engagement is. I know you're a big fan of live, which I am too, because that audience engagement, when you can actually talk and bring out people's names, is really powerful.
Live all the time for me. No pre-record. I don't like pre-record. You and I are still going to be friends when this is over, to be clear, but I am live all the way. Jen, what would you say to a professional event planner out there who has years of experience delivering successful on-site experiences, but they're just not confident in working in the virtual or hybrid space? How easy is it for them to work with someone like you to make sure that their virtual and hybrid experience is extraordinary?
There's lots of different ways we can do that, from just setting together consulting high level to make sure you're in the right direction if you have all the resources internally. We've done that with groups that they're working with us for a couple years. They're getting their teams all trained up that they can run with it. We're also working with other groups that, for longer term, we can help them put together those plans. We have a lot of different tools, best practices that we incorporate throughout, different resources that we can deploy, and staff that can help you even up through the event. So reach out, if we can help you, if you want to chat and just explore, have a virtual coffee, which I'm a big fan of, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Or you can reach out. We have a website, King and Kush Solutions, and our team can explore how we can help you, or at least help get you in the right direction to figure out who you could potentially work with.
Jen, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I already feel better about my next virtual hybrid event.
David, it's such a pleasure. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much again to Jen. And if you'd like to find out more about the work that she does, visit kingandkushsolutions.com. Now, remember, I did say that we want this to be interactive, so we've got loads of comments coming in. Nardos is coming in with her comment. She's saying she couldn't agree more. Having a solution that's a partner and that is going to work with you to get the most of your events should be a key consideration. I really do agree. Stephen is saying the key element for clients new to the virtual world is to take away the fear and uncertainty of hosting a virtual event. Absolutely. There's a huge amount of fear. So remember to keep your comments coming. And if you'd like to be sent a recording of this and all future episodes, type the word recording in the box below and we will make sure that you get to it. This episode is all about platforms. So I think it's about time that we explored one that is making huge waves and is fast becoming the very front runner in terms of innovation. Glisser has become one of the world's leading virtual and hybrid event platforms. They turn events into truly immersive experiences that engage attendees, that provide tools that generate meaningful data and insights. They put the user experience first. They focus on impact, outcomes, and results-oriented virtual and hybrid events. And we are delighted to be joined by CEO and founder Mike. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the Virtual Delegate.
No problem, David.
So, Mike, I have to ask you, your industry has gone through a pretty breathtaking roller coaster ride over the last 12 months. Obviously, on our side as event professionals, we've had our challenges. But for you and your team, has it just been one opportunity after the other?
I think it's a really similar story to Chris. With the start of 2020, we practically lost all of our client base, or at least the events were drying up. So we had to pivot fast to that, if we can use that term. But we already had a virtual or hybrid product that we kind of had on the side and was selling to a handful of clients. We just simply flipped our focus onto that product, and we're able to get out fast and get to the market. And yeah, as a result, it was a great year for us, and it's continuing into 2021. So I think we had a bit of luck, but I think we made our own luck by being quick.
Yes, preparation meets opportunity is always the solution. Now, tell me, I know that as a business, you are driven by data, making sure that there's a measurable impact from and after your events. Why is that so important?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I started the company 7 years ago was because I didn't have that data. So I was a marketing guy, running a team and running marketing channels that included events, and every other channel was digitizing and becoming absolutely trackable. But I found that events were just very loose. We were measuring things by kind of qualitative feedback, and whether the CEO of the company looked happy at the event, and it just felt like it wasn't analytical enough. So I started the company to really solve that, and saying basically, if we can get people participating during sessions on their mobile phones, we can get some analytics from that. We can try and take their participation and see whether it corresponds with the actions that we want them to take as a result of the event. So the very heart of our company has been around data. The great thing about the shift to virtual and hybrid is that because people have to, because the audiences have to live inside the environment, and everything requires their participation, we get a lot more button presses. So we can see a lot more of the things that they're doing, what they're looking at, what they like, what presentations they download, the things they actively participate in, which speakers are better than other speakers. So suddenly you've got this vast richness of data, which is telling you more and more about your event and really giving you those ROI metrics that we've always been craving for.
I really do think that the numbers help, don't they? Because as we navigate this virtual and hybrid world, we're all learning, in some cases for the first time, what is actually working. So that measurement is absolutely key. So tell me, do you think that from a platform point of view, that a platform business has a responsibility to educate the events industry on what's actually possible? Because, in the early days of the pandemic, most virtual events were spray and pray. They booked a few speakers, picked a couple of themes, and just delivered the material. But really, we can do so much more than that now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're trying to educate, but I think we're trying to work hand in hand with our clients and agencies as well to come up with better and better experiences. I think we're all learning on the job as well. We're listening to what our clients want. We're looking at what audiences are doing and trying to understand, why they're doing certain things, and seeing if we can make that experience better. So I think there's a collective learning exercise happening. We're trying to take the things we've learned from hundreds, if not thousands, of client events and share that with new clients and people that come to see us. And if we can draw on each of those experiences, we can just make things better and better. But I think that planners at the start of the pandemic were some of them were perhaps quite skeptical, some of them were nervous, but I think the majority now, I would say, have been pleasantly surprised with how they've picked it up, the results they're able to achieve, the additional audiences they're able to reach. And so now it's not a case of us having to sort of them reluctantly learning this stuff. I think they're actively coming to us and asking for more and more. And how do they make it? They know they're going to do it. They just want to know how to make it better now.
And a reminder to everyone watching, we are live. If you have questions for Mike or for Chris, who will be back shortly, then please do pop them inside the comments. Mike, I'm curious though, I, for one, at the start of the pandemic, as I started to run towards the virtual challenge and the virtual opportunity, I was fascinated by features and functions, Mike. Oh, the more bells and whistles that I could get, the better. Is that a mistake?
Well, I think Jen made the point earlier that you've got to focus on what the objective of the event is, and that really drives what you're trying to achieve and the results you're trying to get out of running that event. From that, then you can start to think about features, but you don't go features first and then kind of create a tick list, and whoever has the most, that's the platform I'm going to pick. Your event might be driving networking. Your event might be about training and teaching and learning and educating. Your event might be about building brand. And whatever way your event's angled, you've got to pick a platform that's appropriate for delivering that end result. Some will be better than others at certain things. So I think as long as you sit down, look at the objectives, what you're trying to achieve, and use that to determine whether you want to run an event in the first place, and then whether it should be virtual, maybe hybrid, maybe in person, and then start thinking about features. That's probably the right order to do everything.
And I suppose my last question before I bring Chris back in, how on earth do you decide what to put into your feature and function pipeline when it comes to platforms, because you must be bombarded with feedback, with suggestions. How do you decide what matters, what will really make an impact, and actually what is nice to have versus what's need to have?
I mean, I think that is a really good problem to have. Our customers are always forward in coming out with ideas and new features that they want and the way they want things changed. Our job is to really try and rationalize those and maybe group them together and develop them in a way that allows the benefit to be given to many customers. So whilst one customer might want to feature in a very specific way, we often expand upon that and design it in a way that allow hundreds of customers to benefit from it. So it's a case of ranking, but also grouping together those things and prioritizing them. The thing that we've really seen most last year was a big demand for customization. That was the thing if we could change one thing, our clients would want it changed 10 different ways. And we've listened to that, and we really want to build in that kind of mass customization concept into the product. Because again, if you're working with agencies such as Chris, for them, they really want to be able to take a platform and get creative with it, not to be restricted by gray boxes and tiny spaces to put logos, but to really take it on and create something which is spectacular. And our job is to make sure that our platform is built in a way that the real creative people can build on top of it rather than restricting them.
Speaking of creative people, let's bring Chris back in. Chris, I missed you. Tell me, Chris, do you see a difference between a virtual platform vis-a-vis a hybrid platform?
I think we're going to still, it's going to be something that we'll see over the next few months. I think that there were a lot of platforms, Mike alluded to it earlier, that, were very much focused on supporting a live event. Mike was fantastic and had his virtual products ready to go. I think what we're going to see over the next few months is whether those platforms that were built specifically for virtual will actually stand up to that hybrid experience. You've got two very different audiences there. In the build-up, they're all virtual, but once they actually, once you have that live event and you've got your on-site attendees and your virtual attendees, how is that engagement and that interaction between those two journeys going to improve?
And Mike, from a platform point of view, what are you seeing in terms of trends of interactivity? How are we actually drawing in the audience from home so that they don't get distracted by emptying the dishwasher or, worse still, emptying the fridge?
Yeah, I think we're seeing an increasing number of clients coming to us wanting us to integrate other things that they found. And I think that's important. We don't want to just try and build everything ourselves. We want to be able to easily bring in other things that people have discovered that are solving specific problems for them. So whether it's a whiteboarding functionality or live translation, things like that, we've very much seen our platform as a connector of multiple things so that we can introduce those, bring them in without the kind of data and login problems that Jen mentioned earlier, so that everything runs smoothly from an audience perspective, and give them that one size fits all platform, but bringing in multiple providers.
Well, it has been wonderful to have the opportunity to chat to both of you. I cannot thank you enough for your time. And I hope afterwards you'll go through and look at the comments, because you've been very popular. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to beat the quality of this first episode. So I really appreciate it, Mike and Chris. Try and give me a high five. Let's see if we can make this work. Can we get a high? It was a terrible idea. I deeply regret even trying it. Chris and Mike, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thank you. Take care.
And of course, thanks to every single one of you for tuning in. If you want to find out more about Glisser, then visit glisser.com. And also, we want to feature you in a future episode of The Virtual Delegate. So tell us about the amazing case studies, about the incredible innovations, but also the great suppliers that you have used to make your next or your previous events a huge success. Send us a little message on LinkedIn or on any of the other platforms, and we will try to make sure that we feature your story in the future. And of course, please do share this brand new project, this brand new show that we're collaborating with our friends at ICC Belfast, a truly hybrid by design venue from this stunning, wonderful interactive studio here. Every corner of the venue is ready for hybrid, and we'll be showing you some of it over the course of the next 6 episodes. But we need your help. So tag some of your friends and colleagues in the industry in the comments below, and we will make sure that they get involved too. And in the next episode, we will be looking at killer content. How do you make sure that the learning material that jumps off the screen, that they truly, your audience, lean into the screen, that they want to take part instead of feeling like they have to take part? And I think it's about time that we find out who won our chocolate bar. I'm going to choose someone at random from the comments. So I'm going to look away. I want to make sure that there's no steward's inquiry. And the winner is Ronnie Sher. Ronnie says, Jen is great. Met her in 2010 through the DES program. It's a great program, but more importantly, Ronnie, it's a great opportunity for you to get a free chocolate bar. Now, I'm not sure where you are in the world. There's a good chance it'll cost us about $100 to send you the chocolate bar, but nonetheless, you are getting a chocolate bar. And a huge thank you to every single one of you who have joined us here on this inaugural episode of the Virtual Delegate. One thing is clear, virtual and hybrid is here to stay. The Virtual Delegate will always be with us, and we will be with you for the next 6 weeks. We hope that you will join us, and we'll catch up with you really soon.